The mountain road twisted like a coiled serpent beneath the tires of Clara Vance's rented car. Outside, snow fell in thick, swirling sheets, swallowing the world beyond her headlights. The GPS screen glowed dimly on the dashboard, but even it seemed uncertain, its blue arrow trembling at the edge of the map. She was late, much later than she had planned. The weather had worsened hours earlier, turning the last 30 miles into a white-knuckle crawl. There were no other cars, no gas stations, no roadside diners, only the unbroken forest climbing higher toward the black peaks ahead. When the sign appeared through the snow, it looked almost like a mirage. Blackwood Inn, lodging, dining, history. The inn sat at the edge of a cliff, its dark wooden frame nearly blending into the night. Dim yellow light glowed from its windows, and smoke curled from a single chimney. Clara parked beside a half-buried pickup truck, grabbed her overnight bag, and hurried to the door. Inside, warmth and the smell of burning cedar wrapped around her. The lobby was lined with heavy beams and old photographs in tarnished frames. An ancient grandfather clock stood beside the reception desk, its pendulum swinging with slow, hypnotic precision. The innkeeper looked up from a ledger. He was tall and thin, with hair as white as the snow outside and a sharp nose that cast a long shadow across his face. "Evening," he said. "You've taken the last room. We don't often see travelers this late in the season." Clara smiled weakly. "The storm caught me off guard." He slid a brass key across the counter. "Room 6. End of the hall upstairs. Supper's over, but I can have Mary bring you tea." Room 6 was small but cozy, with lace curtains over the windows and an old-fashioned quilt on the bed. Clara set down her bag and glanced at the nightstand. An envelope lay there, yellowed with age. Her name, Clara Vance, was written on it in neat, looping handwriting. Frowning, she tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper. The words were written in a hurried scrawl. "Do not leave your room after midnight. Do not answer if someone knocks." Her skin prickled. It had to be some sort of joke, maybe a quirky way the inn entertained guests. Still, she slid the note into her bag and tried to forget it. That night, the wind battered the walls, rattling the window panes. Clara read until her eyes grew heavy, then switched off the lamp. The grandfather clock downstairs chimed 12. Almost immediately, she heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow, uneven. They stopped outside her door. Knock. Clara sat up in bed, her pulse hammering. The knock came again, softer this time, followed by a voice. "Please let me in, it's so cold." It wasn't the innkeeper's voice. She stayed frozen in bed, holding her breath. After a moment, the footsteps moved away, but instead of fading, they seemed to circle her room, along the walls, across the ceiling, impossibly light and quick. Then came the whisper, right by her ear. "You're in my room." When she woke in the morning, the room looked exactly as it had the night before. Only the note was gone. The innkeeper greeted her at breakfast with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Sleep well?" Clara hesitated. "I heard someone walking around last night." The smile faded. "Best not to wander in storms like this. Blackwood has a way of keeping those who stray too far." By afternoon, the snow was so deep the road was gone. The other guests, an older couple and a silent man in a gray coat, kept mostly to themselves. That night, just before bed, Clara heard something strange outside her window. Not footsteps, not the wind, a scratching sound. And when she looked through the glass, she saw fingerprints forming on the frost from the outside, 3 stories up. Clara didn't sleep much after that. She sat in bed with the lamp on, the old quilt pulled up to her chin, listening to the wind tear at the inn's walls. The scratching outside her window came and went, sometimes faint, sometimes frantic, as if someone or something was trying to scrape its way through the glass. By 3 a.m., it stopped. She told herself it was just a branch, though she knew there were no trees close enough to touch the building. When morning finally came, she went to breakfast again. The older couple was gone, though their coats still hung on the rack by the lobby door. The silent man in the gray coat sat at a corner table, staring into his coffee. The innkeeper moved quietly between tables. "Snow's worse today," he told her. "No plows until the pass clears." Clara nodded, trying to keep her voice casual. "I think someone was outside my window last night." He froze for a fraction of a second before continuing to pour her tea. "Best keep your curtains closed after dark." The day crawled by. She wandered the halls, looking at the old photographs on the walls, guests from decades past, all in black and white. Some were dated as far back as the 1920s. One photograph caught her eye. It was labeled Room 6, 1934. A woman stood at the window, smiling faintly. Her eyes were strange, cloudy, like pale glass. Clara's stomach tightened when she realized it was the same window she had looked out of last night. That evening, the snowstorm worsened. The other guests vanished into their rooms early, and by 9 o'clock, the inn was silent except for the steady ticking of the grandfather clock. Clara decided she'd keep herself awake until morning. She brewed strong tea, sat in the armchair by the bed, and waited. At exactly midnight, the clock downstairs began to chime. The footsteps started again. Slow, measured, coming down the hallway toward room 6. Knock. Her breath caught. Knock. Then the same voice as before, low, shivering, desperate. "Please let me in, it's so cold." Clara didn't move. She gripped the arms of the chair until her knuckles turned white. After a pause, the voice changed. It was still female, but deeper now, with a tone like a smile in the dark. "You're in my room, Clara." The doorknob began to turn. She lunged forward, holding it in place. Something on the other side pulled hard, but she pressed all her weight against it until the shaking stopped. Then came the scratching, this time from inside the room. From under the bed, Clara stumbled backward, heart pounding. The scratching grew louder, joined by a soft, wet sound, like something dragging itself across the floorboards. A pale hand slid out from beneath the bed. The fingers were thin, almost skeletal, and the nails were cracked and blackened. Clara grabbed her bag, yanked the door open, and bolted into the hallway. The corridor was darker than before, the light bulbs flickering weakly. At the far end, the silent man in the gray coat stood perfectly still, watching her. "Help me," she called, running toward him. He didn't move. He didn't blink. And when she got closer, she saw his face, pale, eyes clouded like the woman in the photograph. She turned and fled down the stairs. The lobby was empty, the innkeeper gone. The front door wouldn't open. It was locked with a heavy chain. The grandfather clock struck 1. Behind her, footsteps descended the stairs. More than one set. Slow. In unison. She darted into the dining room, looking for another exit. The windows were covered in frost so thick she couldn't see out. She wiped at one with her sleeve and saw faces on the other side. Dozens of them, pressed against the glass. All pale. All watching. The glass began to crack under the pressure of unseen hands. Clara ran back to the lobby, desperate. That's when she saw the ledger on the reception desk. It was open to a page filled with names. Most were crossed out in red ink. Only the bottom name remained untouched. Clara Vance, room 6. A drop of water fell on the page. She looked up and saw the ceiling dripping, not water, but melted snow, staining the wood dark. Footsteps circled above her, impossibly fast, as if someone was running on all fours. The innkeeper appeared suddenly behind the desk. "It's too late now," he said quietly. "Blackwood chooses who stays." Clara backed away. "I'm not staying. I'm leaving now." His pale eyes held hers. "The room's already claimed you." The clock struck 2. The air turned icy, her breath clouding in front of her. She heard the knocking again, but this time it was coming from inside her head. Knock, knock, knock. She doesn't remember opening her eyes again. But in the morning, the snowstorm had cleared. A new guest checked into room 6. The innkeeper handed them the brass key and smiled. "You've taken the last room," he said. "We don't often see travelers this late in the season." Upstairs, in the nightstand drawer, an envelope waited. On it was written the guest's name, in neat, looping handwriting.